Backslide by Alan T. Cunningham. Chapter 1. The Blood Beneath the Ivy. Boston, present day. The room was quiet, save for the rhythmic tick of the metronome and the slow, shallow breathing of the man lying on the couch. Dr. Mary Porter sat across from him, fingers steepled, voice low and steady. "Tell me what you see," she said. The patient, 42, war veteran, childhood trauma survivor, had been under for 15 minutes, long enough now to have slipped beyond the conscious veil. His jaw twitched. "There's a crowd there, screaming, but not at me, it's someone else, a woman." Mary leaned in slightly. "What woman?" He swallowed. "She's bleeding, there's a scaffold, a blade." Mary froze. "Guillotine." The man's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're calling her a traitor, but she's not. She tried to help, tried to warn someone, but it was too late. I was there, watching, I didn't stop it, I should have." His body tensed, fists clenching. Mary steadied her breath. This wasn't an uncommon narrative theme among patients, but the details mattered. The exact ones he now gave. The name of the woman, the sigil on the guards' uniforms, the dialect of the screaming crowd. Later, when she cross-referenced the session transcripts, she'd find that every detail aligned perfectly with the execution of Charlotte Corday, right down to the chipped floor stone at the scaffold. But for now, she placed a gentle hand on the man's shoulder. "It's not your fault. You're safe now. That life is over." The man's eyes shot open, wide and wild. "No," he hissed. "It's not." Chapter 2. Patrick's Ghost. She woke up on the floor. The wood beneath her cheek was cold and sticky with something sweet and stale. Spilled whiskey, maybe, or the remains of whatever she'd tried to drown herself in the night before. Her head throbbed like a struck drum. Mary Porter groaned, rolling onto her back, blinking up at the cathedral ceiling of her Beacon Hill apartment. The shadows played tricks, shapes moving in corners that didn't move, lights flickering from somewhere they shouldn't. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she saw him. Patrick. Leaning in the hallway, arms crossed. That same crooked smile. The black coat he wore in Belfast, back when they were both young and angry and dangerous in all the ways that felt like love. She blinked, gone. "Christ," she muttered, dragging herself to her feet. "Get it together." The coffee tasted like charcoal and regret. She didn't bother changing out of the t-shirt she'd slept in someone else's. She couldn't remember whose, and pulled on jeans with a stain at the knee she'd never managed to scrub out. The memory of Patrick still clung to her like smoke. She hadn't seen him in years, not since the safe house fire, not since the reports, the photos, the closed casket funeral she hadn't attended. But last night she had seen him, or thought she had, on Tremont Street in the rain just after midnight. He looked older, he looked real. Her phone buzzed. A text from her research assistant, Ruben. "Patient 41 requesting urgent session. Claims memory regression triggered spontaneous language recall, Aramaic." Mary exhaled. Of course he did. She gathered her things and tried not to think about ghosts. Not the kind that spoke dead languages, and not the kind that kissed her in a back room in Derry with blood still on his knuckles. But by the time she made it down the steps and into the street, the same black coat passed just out of view. And this time, it turned back to look at her. Chapter 3. Lives We Leave Behind. The office was quiet when Mary arrived, too quiet. Ruben was usually already at his desk, headphones in, humming softly along to some obscure post-rock band. Today, the chair sat empty, the computer asleep. She frowned and entered her therapy room. Patient 41 Samuel Greaves was already waiting, upright, alert, not at all how she'd left him the last time. "Dr. Porter," he said, his voice oddly formal. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." Mary sat, studying him. "I heard you had a breakthrough." He nodded. "Not a breakthrough, a crossing." Mary opened her notepad. "Go on." "When I left last week," Samuel began, "I had dreams. Not visions, these weren't metaphor. They were real. I was someone else. I knew his thoughts. I remembered how he held a pen, how he killed a man." Mary kept her expression neutral, but her pulse quickened. Who were you? His name was Elir, Samuel said. A scribe in Jerusalem, 1st century. He wrote on scrolls, but not just text. He hid messages, maps, coordinates, something called the Path of Fire. Mary scribbled the name. You mentioned Aramaic. Samuel nodded. I could speak it. I translated a phrase I saw in the dream. I wrote it down. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a folded paper. Inside, the scrawled phrase read, "The fire sleeps in flesh. Awaken it and you awaken war." Mary stared at the ink. I've never studied Aramaic, he said, but I knew how to write that, just like I knew how to disarm a man with a knife last night when someone tried to mug me. Mary looked up. Did you file a report? I didn't need to. I think they were testing me. She blinked. Who? Samuel leaned forward. There's something else, Doctor. I think you're one of us. One of the returned. Mary's stomach tightened. I don't know what you mean. He smiled. You will. When he left, Mary sat alone for a long time. She didn't look at the phrase again. She didn't need to. Her hands remembered how to write it. And that night, for the first time in months, she dreamed of fire. Chapter 4, The Path of Fire. Reuben burst into Mary's office mid-morning, face pale, laptop in hand. You need to see this, he said, sliding the screen toward her. Mary blinked at the screen. A surveillance still grainy, black and white, showing Samuel Greaves in a gas station parking lot. He stood beside a man in a hoodie, their hands locked in what appeared to be a struggle. Security cam from last night, Reuben said. 30 minutes after Samuel left your office. She squinted. Is that a knife? Reuben nodded. The other guy had it, and then Samuel took it from him, disarmed him like it was muscle memory. Mary frowned. He said something about being tested. That's not all. Reuben clicked another tab. A linguistic forum post appeared, anonymous, time-stamped at 2:41 a.m. It featured a scanned page of ancient script, labeled Variant Aramaic, circa 1st century CE. Beneath it, a translation. To awaken the flame is to summon the buried war. Mary felt a chill settle deep in her chest. It's the same phrase, she murmured. Reuben looked at her. There are others posting similar symbols. Not just here, Russia, Turkey, Argentina. Same dream, same language. Mary leaned back. This can't be coincidence. Reuben hesitated. I asked one of my old professors at Yale about Path of Fire. He'd never heard of it, but he found one reference in a 15th century Vatican ledger. It was marked as heresy. The last known holder of the scrolls, a woman burned at the stake. Mary felt a prick of fear, sharp and real. What was her name? He flipped to the footnote. Magda of Rheims. The room fell silent. Mary whispered, I know that name. Reuben blinked. How? She was me. She didn't mean to say it aloud. The words had left her lips before she could stop them, tumbling out like a memory breaking loose from stone. Reuben stared. You mean you've remembered? Mary nodded slowly. Not everything, just fire, screaming, the smell of burned linen, and something about a map hidden in blood. Reuben closed the laptop. Then we need to find it. Mary looked at him. Find what? He said it without blinking. The Path of Fire. Chapter 5, Echoes of Fire. The night outside Mary's apartment was thick with fog, curling through the streets like fingers reaching for something lost. She sat at her desk, the ancient Aramaic phrase etched into her mind like a curse. The fire sleeps in flesh. Awaken it and you awaken war. Her hands hovered over the keyboard, hesitant to type the words aloud, as if they might ignite the air. A soft knock startled her. She turned to find Samuel standing in the doorway, rain dripping from his coat. Mary, he said quietly, I need to show you something. He moved past her and pulled a folded parchment from his pocket. The edges were worn and stained with age, but the symbols scrawled across it were unmistakable, the same sigil she'd seen in the Project Janus files. I found this buried in my grandfather's things after he passed. He was a historian, obsessed with old texts, but he never spoke of this until his last days. He told me it was part of the path of fire. Mary leaned closer, tracing the ink with a trembling finger. This looks like a map. Samuel nodded. Coordinates, places across the globe marked with the flame symbol. One of them is here in Boston. Her pulse quickened. Why Boston? Because it's not just about history, it's about us, the returned. Mary swallowed hard. You think we're linked to all this past life stuff? Samuel's eyes were steady. Not just linked, we're the carriers. The flame rests in our blood, and if it wakes fully. Mary interrupted. It could bring war. He nodded grimly. And someone's trying to make sure that happens. The apartment lights flickered, shadows stretching like claws across the walls. Mary felt a chill run down her spine. Who? She whispered. Samuel's jaw tightened. The same people who hunted your predecessor, the ones who want to control the path and the flame within us all. Mary closed her eyes, remembering the burning faces in her dreams. The flame that had scorched more than just flesh, it had scorched memory, time, reality itself. We need to find the map's secrets before they do, she said. Samuel's voice was firm. Before the fire wakes completely. The flame inside Mary's palm pulsed faintly, as if answering. Outside, the fog thickened. The war had already begun. Chapter 6, Regression Protocol. Mary stood in front of the file cabinet in her office, staring at the label she'd never dared open before, Project Janus, dormant. The folder wasn't part of any patient record. It had no barcode, no backup, no mention in the clinic's digital archives. It had been left for her by her predecessor, Dr. Alina Dane, who'd vanished without explanation 6 years ago. She pulled it out with a trembling hand. Inside were photographs, session transcripts, and scrawled margin notes in a frantic hand. Most of the patients were dead. The official cause of death for each, cardiac arrest. But the patterns were too precise. All had experienced language regression into ancient dialects Akkadian, Aramaic, Old Norse. All had described past lives with astonishing clarity, and all had drawn the same symbol. The sigil. A flame inside an eye. Mary touched the paper, and for a moment she could feel heat radiate from it. A knock at the door. She startled, slammed the folder shut. Reuben peeked in. You all right? You missed your consult with Dr. Elahi. Mary waved him in. Change of plans. I need your help running a regression protocol. I want to try it myself. His eyes widened. You're serious, marry that. I'm done being on the outside of this, she said. Whatever's happening to Samuel, to the others, it's happening to me too. I need to know what's buried. They prepared the therapy suite in silence. Reuben adjusted the recording equipment, dimmed the lights, and calibrated the binaural tones. Mary lay back on the recliner, heart racing. Ready? Reuben asked. Start the countdown. The metronome ticked, the tones hummed. Within minutes, Mary's breathing slowed. Her body slackened. Reuben's voice was distant. Where are you now, Mary? She answered without speaking, her voice smooth and ancient. I am not Mary, I am Magda, daughter of fire, keeper of the map. Reuben swallowed. Where's the map, Magda? In the vein of kings, in the blood of the betrayer, sealed beneath the white tree. Reuben marked every word. Who betrayed you? Her face twisted. The one who called himself protector, he took the path for himself, and he fell, as we all did. A sudden jolt, Mary convulsed. Magda, Mary, can you hear me? Her eyes snapped open, blazing gold, not metaphorically, not the effect of light. Reuben stumbled back. She gasped, then screamed, grabbing the chair's arms as if trying to ground herself to this reality. When the episode passed, she sat trembling. Sweat soaked her shirt. She looked at Reuben with wide, terrified eyes. I saw him, she said. Patrick, but he was Patrick. He was one of the old ones, a guardian or a thief. He held the flame and he gave it away. Reuben didn't know what to say. Mary looked down at her hands. The sigil was burned into her palm. No ink, no heat. Just flesh. And fire.
Chapter 7, Shadows and the Flame. Mary sat in her dim office, the late afternoon sun bleeding weakly through the blinds. The sigil burned faintly in her palm, a ghost of fire beneath her skin. She flexed her fingers, feeling the ache of something ancient stirring inside her. Reuben was hunched over his laptop, typing feverishly. I cross-checked the name Magda of Reims with the archives. There's a gap in historical records, 15th century, suddenly she disappears after the witch trials. No body. No execution records. Just gone. Mary swallowed hard. Vanished like Eleanor Dane. Reuben nodded. Exactly. And it's not just history. Look at this. He turned the laptop toward her. A grainy scan filled the screen, an illuminated manuscript, pages brittle with age. Across the margins, the same flame sigil had been drawn again and again, sometimes inside an eye, sometimes encircling a serpent. Beneath it, the heading read, Covenantum Ignis. Mary leaned closer. Covenant of Fire. Reuben's voice was hushed. It's referenced in half a dozen forbidden texts. Always the same pattern, flame bound to flesh, flesh bound to memory. The returned aren't accidents, Mary. They're part of a covenant. Something deliberate. Her pulse quickened. Deliberate by who? Reuben hesitated. That's where the trail goes cold. But there's something else. A name buried in a Vatican ledger, Custodes Flammi. Mary frowned. Custodians of the flame. He nodded. A secret order charged with either protecting or suppressing the returned. No one's sure which. But every reference ends with the same symbol. Mary's stomach tightened. The eye and the fire. Reuben tapped the desk. And guess where the last known custodian enclave was based? She looked at him warily. Boston, he said. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the laptop fan. Mary closed her eyes, the weight of history pressing down like a vice. If the custodians are here, they already know about us. Reuben's voice was unsteady. Which means we're not searching for them, Mary. They're hunting you. The sigil in her palm flared hot, pulsing like a second heartbeat. She clenched her fist, forcing the light down. We can't stay here, she whispered. The past is moving. And it's moving toward us. Outside, the sun slipped below the horizon, leaving Boston in shadow. And somewhere in the gathering dark, footsteps echoed, waiting, closing in.
Chapter 8: Shadows in the Blood. The streets of Boston were slick with rain, reflecting the amber glow of the streetlights like molten gold. Mary and Samuel moved swiftly, weaving through alleys and side streets, their breath clouding in the cold night air. Where exactly are we headed? Mary asked, eyes scanning the darkened windows, alert to any movement. Samuel glanced at the worn parchment map. This symbol marks the old granary burying ground, one of the oldest cemeteries in the city. It said that centuries ago, secret societies buried more than just bodies there. Mary's heart beat faster. Secret societies connected to the path of fire. Exactly. Magda of Reims was rumored to have allies even after her death. Her followers hid pieces of the scrolls in places like this, hopping to protect the flame. They reached the wrought iron gates, rusted and twisted with age. Samuel pulled out a small flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. Look for the symbols, he said, something that matches the sigil on the map. Mary's fingers brushed the cold iron as they stepped inside. Gravestones rose like sentinels, carved with names and dates long forgotten. Suddenly, Samuel stopped. Here. Carved into the base of a weathered tombstone was a faint, almost imperceptible flame-shaped glyph. Mary knelt, running her hands over the cold stone. It's hidden beneath layers of grime, but it's real. Samuel produced a small brush from his coat pocket, gently clearing dust and dirt. As the symbol emerged, a faint hum seemed to vibrate in the air. Mary's breath caught. This isn't just a mark, she whispered. It's a lock. Samuel nodded, and I think the map is the key. He pulled a thin leather strap from his bag and laid it across the glyph. As he did, the ground beneath them trembled. A section of earth shifted, revealing a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. Mary swallowed her fear and stepped forward. "After you," Samuel said, a flicker of a smile breaking through. The air below was cool and dry, tinged with the scent of ancient wood and burnt parchment. At the bottom, they found a room lined with shelves, scrolls, and old books, hidden knowledge that had survived centuries. Mary's fingers trembled as she reached for a leather-bound tome. The cover was embossed with the flame's sigil. She opened it, revealing page after page of cryptic writing texts on alchemy, spirit travel, and something called the Covenant of Fire. A cold realization settled over her. "This is bigger than I thought." Samuel's voice was grim, and we're in the middle of it. From the shadows, footsteps echoed. Mary spun around. "Patrick." His silhouette stepped into the torchlight, eyes dark but unreadable. "Did you really think you could keep me out of this?" he said, voice low. Mary's heart thundered. The past was far from dead. It was coming for them all. Chapter 9, The Unfinished Flame. Patrick's eyes glinted in the flickering torchlight as he stepped closer. The years etched into his face, yet the same wildfire burning beneath. "Mary," he said, voice rough, "you don't know what you're meddling with. The path of fire, it's not just history, it's power, and power always comes with a price." Mary stood her ground, fists clenched. "You disappeared years ago. Everyone thought you were dead." Patrick's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Dead, maybe, but the war I fought didn't end with my body. It lives in me and now in you." Samuel watched silently, calculating. "Why are you here now?" Mary demanded. Patrick's gaze flicked to Samuel. "Because the flame is awakening, and if it isn't controlled, it will consume everything." "Then why try to stop us?" Mary's voice cracked. "Why not join forces?" Patrick's expression darkened. "Because not all fires heal, some destroy, and I've seen what happens when the flame is unleashed without restraint." Mary felt the weight of his words settle over her like ash. "So, what? You want to burn it all down to save it?" Patrick's answer was a slow nod. Samuel stepped forward. "There has to be another way. We're the returned. We're meant to protect this knowledge, not bury it in fear." Patrick's eyes flickered, a hint of old affection softening his gaze toward Mary. "Then prove it," he said. "Find the truth, but be ready. The past isn't just memories, it's a battlefield." The underground chamber seemed to hold its breath as the three of them stood in uneasy alliance. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the war rekindling beneath its feet. Mary closed the tome, determination burning in her chest. The path of fire was no longer just a map. It was a calling, and she would follow it wherever it led. Chapter 10, Bloodlines and Betrayals. The underground chamber had shifted from eerie silence to tense anticipation. Patrick's warning echoed in Mary's mind as she traced the ancient symbols in the tome. "Patrick," Mary said cautiously, "what exactly happened to you? Why did you vanish?" He looked away, jaw clenched. "The IRA wasn't just a fight for freedom, it was a crucible. I was marked, hunted by enemies both seen and unseen. When the safe house burned, I was presumed dead. But that was the start of something darker." Samuel's eyes narrowed. "Darker how?" Patrick's voice dropped. "After I disappeared, I was taken by a secret faction within the organization, a sect obsessed with the supernatural. They believed in harnessing the power of the returned, using the path of fire to control history itself." Mary swallowed hard. "And you escaped?" Patrick shook his head. "No, I was a prisoner for years, used, broken, but I learned their plans. They're still active, still hunting the flame." Mary's mind raced. The threat was closer than she imagined. "Why come back now?" she asked. "Because they're closing in. The flame in you, in Samuel, it's growing stronger. They want to snuff it out or wield it." A sudden noise startled them, footsteps echoing from the stairs. "Someone's coming." Patrick motioned toward a narrow passage. "This way." The three slipped through the shadows, the air thick with dust and secrets. Emerging into an abandoned crypt, Mary caught her breath. "We can't keep running," she said, voice steady despite the fear. Patrick nodded. "We won't, we fight, but we need allies." Samuel looked between them. "Who can we trust?" Patrick's eyes met Mary's. "That's the question, because some betrayals come from blood." Mary realized the truth in his words. The war wasn't just about the past. It was about family. And in this fight, blood was the deepest scar. Chapter 11, The Last Ember. The night air was thick with tension as Mary, Patrick, and Samuel gathered in the dimly lit back room of an old Boston pub, a place Mary once frequented with Patrick in better days. Maps, ancient texts, and hastily scrawled notes lay spread across the battered wooden table. The glow of a single lamp cast long shadows, flickering like restless spirits. "We don't have much time," Patrick said, voice low but urgent. "The faction hunting the flame, they've tracked our movements. They're coming for the map, for us." Mary's fingers trembled as she held the leather-bound tome. "What exactly does this path of fire do? Why is it so dangerous?" Samuel leaned in. "It's a guide to awakening the flame inside the returned. Not just their memories, but their full power, the power to reshape history, to rewrite fate itself." Mary's mind raced back to the phrase, "The fire sleeps in flesh. Awaken it and you awaken war." Patrick's eyes darkened. "And if they succeed in forcing the flame to wake prematurely, it will mean chaos, destruction, a war that spans centuries and continents." Suddenly, the pub's door crashed open. Shadowed figures flooded in, armed, relentless. Patrick and Samuel sprang to their feet. "Get ready," Patrick growled. Mary's heart thundered, but amidst the chaos, a fierce resolve ignited within her. She gripped the tome tightly and whispered, "If the fire must burn, let it be on our terms." A fierce battle erupted in the cramped room, echoes of gunfire and shouts mixed with ancient words whispered under breath. Amid the melee, Mary felt the flame stir within her, warm and fierce, illuminating the darkness. With a cry, she unleashed its power, not destruction, but a wave of light and heat that pushed back their attackers, forcing them to retreat. Silence fell. Breathing hard, Mary looked at Patrick and Samuel. "The flame isn't just a weapon," she said. "It's a responsibility." Patrick nodded, eyes softening. "We protect it, we guide it." Samuel smiled, relief flooding his face. "Together." Outside, dawn broke over Boston, light spilling across the city like a promise. Mary stepped into the morning air, the weight of the past behind her, the power of the flame within her, and the uncertain road ahead stretching wide. The past was never truly dead. But this time, she would choose how it lived on. Epilogue, Embers of Tomorrow. Weeks had passed since the battle beneath the city, yet the fire inside Mary burned brighter than ever. Back in her Beacon Hill apartment, she sat by the window overlooking the waking city, the leather-bound tome resting on her lap. Her phone buzzed, a message from Samuel. "New dreams. The flame guides us still." She smiled softly. Patrick's words echoed in her mind. The past isn't just memory, it's a battlefield. But now Mary knew the truth. The past was also a promise. A promise that history could be faced, scars acknowledged, and cycles broken. With every regression session, every whispered secret from those who lived before, she was not just unearthing pain, she was reclaiming power. The flame was no longer a curse. It was a light. And as the city stretched beneath the morning sun, Mary Porter stood ready. Not to hide from history's shadows, but to shape them. Because some fires don't burn out. They blaze anew, lighting the way forward.